And it's always the thing that is amazing is, look, I mean, women can actually do this. And you think, where have you all been for these decades, that we've been part of this business? Well, this is a very extraordinary way to meet, but it's a great pleasure to meet you. Hello.
It's a great pleasure to meet you. And I'm so honoured and touched to have been asked to present you with the Richard Harris Award for outstanding contribution to British film. I don't have anything to give you. I assume
okay, I've got it here.
Okay, great. But what a treat. You worked with Richard Harris, didn't you, at some point? Or?
I did many, many years ago. I think it was in This Sporting Life. And I remember I went to the studio at some ungodly hour and they steered me to the crowd dressing room, and all the women in it looked at me very suspiciously. Who was I? I wasn't, one of their number. And eventually they worked that out. And I had to sit on the stairs at a party that he was attending as a winner of whatever sport it was about. And he paused and smiled at me. That was our shot. So that was my only time of ever coming within touching distance of him. But he did smile very nicely.
Oh, well, that's good. And this is sort of in touching distance as well, right? I mean,
absolutely.
So this is a real treat for me because we actually sort of did a film together in September, but we never met on Mothering Sunday.
No, that's right.
So I thought I'd start off because there are so many questions I'd love to ask. I mean, it's crazy to me that we haven't crossed paths at any point, but I'm sure that you've been told that I'm a great fan and admirer of your work, and so I've got lots and lots of questions, but I'm going to start pretty simply with how it all started. Why did you end up in acting?
Well, I'd left school and I was working in my local Boots Cash chemist, and a friend of mine was a member of a local amateur dramatic society, and she said, come along, it's fun. And I went along, and it was. And somebody said to me, you should do this professionally. No one had ever said that to me in my life before. And I must admit, I felt that possibly I had more to offer and the world had more to give than I was actually experiencing in Boots Cash Chemists, though a good job it was. So I wrote to the only drama school I'd ever heard of, which was RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And they had to do 2 auditions for them. And they wrote back and said, if they'd had a scholarship, I would have been awarded it, but they didn't, so I couldn't. And we didn't have the money to send me there. But the manager of Boots Cash Chemists wrote to my local council, and they paid for me to go. And suddenly there I was in London going to a drama school. It was just, the more I think about it now, the bizarre it was, but it wasn't bizarre when I was actually experiencing it.
So Boots paid for you to go to drama school?
No, my local authority did, the county council. That doesn't happen anymore, as we all know.
So Women in Love was obviously a kind of a big step in your career. Does that feel like the most kind of impactful change in your career in terms, obviously, won the Best Actress Oscar for it, but
no, I think the most impactful piece of my career was the work I did with Peter Brook and the RSC, which was well before I did Women in Love. But certainly, as far as opening up a whole new area of available, well, occasionally available work, Women in Love did it, and it was great. I mean, Ken was a remarkable director. The cast was amazing. And so it was a great thing to do.
You talk about someone like Peter Brook, who obviously, someone like me is kind of, you study him extensively at drama school and you and read his works and his theories and everything and his practices. Did that feel, at the time, did you know that when you were working with someone like Peter Brook, that it was kind of vital and exciting?
Oh, I mean, the first time I worked with him, no one had ever asked me or any of the other actors to go down the areas of exploration that he took. To say for granted is absurd, because his own sense of inquiry, of discovery, of what is truthful, what is factual, what is not real, but human, is very extraordinary. And it was just an amazing experience. And it has remained an experience every time I've worked with him. He's 96 now, and he's still working. And he is in my opinion, obviously, the greatest theatrical director in the world, but he still engages across the whole range of what it is to be a human being. It's not limited to gender or race or anything like that. He just wants to know what we're like.
And does he still have his theatre in France? Is that right? I remember.
No, he's handed over the actual management of the Bouffe du Nord, but he certainly works out of there. And certainly the people who work in it are very important to what he's doing. He hasn't, obviously, during the COVID pandemic, but I spoke to him about 18 months ago, and he was going around the world with a play that he'd helped to write, that he directed. I mean, just extraordinary.
Yeah. Wait, so many people I've come across who have been touched by him and his work.
Absolutely.
Just before Christmas, I worked with Simon Godwin, who is a great admirer and had very early on in his career had an interaction with Peter Brook, which he told me this beautiful story about how it basically secured his dream of being a theatre director. So he still has such an influence.
Great.
And so you've obviously, the thing that I'm always impressed with, which I'm dying to know, is about the variation of roles. One of the films that I saw when I was quite young, which, I mean, very cool of my parents to share it with me, but I saw A Touch of Class, and that's obviously very different to a lot of roles you played. Do you feel like at any stage that was something you adopted, kind of trying to curate some sort of variation, or was it just by chance? And
Absolutely not. I mean, the recurring theme, and when I look back, it's more than 60 years, has been the dearth of interesting parts for women. We are still not regarded by contemporary dramatists as ever being the driving dramatic engine. And so the variation, I mean, every time I finished a job, I thought, well, that's the last time I'm ever going to work. Because the preponderance of the importance of women in all aspects, I mean, I don't exclude theatre from this either, but certainly theatre, film, television, you name it, up to a point is almost exclusively to do with appearance and very, very rarely to do with character, unless it's character of an extreme kind. So I was very lucky to do that film, which opened another door for me. Yeah. There wasn't a lot behind the door, but nonetheless, I went through it.
Yeah. And do you sense, how much do you sense a change in that kind of, in the output that we're giving in the roles that are being written? Is there the fact that people like Emerald Fennell, who obviously won the Oscar for her writing this year and is a brilliant director, by having these voices in film and theatre, is that going to change?
The thing I find really interesting, I must admit I'm cynical and I see no major fundamental change. What those women did is irrelevant. The major news story is that they're usually the first ever to get that kind of award. You know what I mean? The first woman director of mixed race, the first writer. And it's always the thing that is amazing is, look, I mean, women can actually do this. And you think, where have you all been for these decades, that we've been part of this business?
Yeah. No, that's really true. There's never kind of look at this film that this person's created and...
No. The big deal is, oh, my word, a woman has got it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So in 1992, you went off to politics.
Yeah.
How long was it before you came back to acting? What was the first?
I left being a member of Parliament in 2015.
Yes.
So right. What had I done? 23 years. I can't remember now.
And how did that come about?
It was because I knew that there were shifts in the actual party itself. There were shifts in the political structures. And I thought, no, I mean, my seat deserves a new voice. And they've got a very good one in Tulip Sadiq, who is the MP. And I was very surprised, having left Parliament, to be approached by the BBC to do a series on the radio. And I thought, oh, well, okay, I'll have a go again.
Yeah.
A great friend of mine, a wonderful Spanish actress, Nuria Esper, did King Lear in Barcelona, and I went over to see her, and she said to me, you should do it. And I said, don't be ridiculous. They'd never let me play Lear in England. What are you talking about? Anyway, then the old Vic approached me, and put up the idea of me doing Lear, and they agreed. And I remember saying to a friend of mine, I'm really worried I may have forgotten how to do it. And she said to me, it's like riding a bike, you never forget.
And
So that was
that
great.
true? Did you? How did you feel getting back on the stage?
I was amazed at how cohesive it was. I mean, the Old Vic is a beautiful theatre to work in. It was a cast which had a lot of very young people in it, many of whom had never been on the professional stage in their lives before. They'd only ever worked for cameras. And so there was that kind of cross ignorance and experience from both of the age groups, which was very helpful.
I remember when I came out of drama school, theatre to me, I was like, it's the safest space. And
Right.
The last time I did a play on stage was at the RSC. And so, and I was meant to do Romeo and Juliet, but obviously that became
Wow.
a film. But now I get the fear when I think about future projects that I'm going to be doing on the stage. I get scared. I mean, was there ever a time where you thought, I'm terrified about getting on stage?
Oh, every performance. I mean, we are sadomasochists.
Yeah.
And the thing that always irritates me is people talk about the first night. Every performance is the first night. You're not played to that audience before. They've not seen you before. It's just that when it works, do you know what I mean? There is an energy that the actors put into the auditorium and the audience sends back some kind of energy to the actors. And it does stay with you. I mean, it is a very unique experience.
Glenda, do you go to the theatre?
Do you know I don't? No. I'm somewhat hypercritical. I think I'm a lousy member of the audience. So I haven't been for a very long time.
How are you a lousy member of the audience? Just not engaged?
Inevitably, you think, what the hell do you think you're doing? Or who wrote this? Or is that really what they would wear? All those utterly irrelevant things. I mean, to work with an audience is, as I've just said, a unique experience. It's unique when it works. It's even more unique when it doesn't. When they let you know, they think you're absolutely the nadir of everything.
So looking ahead, obviously Mothering Sunday managed to make. Tell me a bit about is it The Escaper?
The Great Escaper.
Great Escaper.
Yeah, it's about this married couple, both in their 90s, I think. And Michael Caine is playing the husband, and I'm the wife who's in the kind of care home because she's got a serious illness. And he wants to take part in the 70th anniversary of the D-Day landings because he was part of that. And he has a very deep reason over and above that we actually won the war for what he actually did on that day. And so that's essentially what The Great Escape is. He, goes off to France on his own and she stays at home. It's pretty much life as well. Most women know it.
Yeah. Great. So we've got lots to look forward to. Well, thank you so much for talking to me, and accepting this award. And
thank you. It's been a privilege and a pleasure to meet you. And I hope you get your feet back on the stage. Don't be frightened. That's what you should feel. I
know. Well, actually, one of the best bits of advice I ever heard was Jessie Buckley.
Oh, yeah.
Very brilliant. Once told me that she was talking to a therapist. I think it was Jessie. I hope I've got this right. But she was talking to a therapist about stage fright, and they said, I mean, it is the word. You'd be mad not to be terrified about stepping on stage. It's an extraordinary experience, and it should be scary.
Absolutely.
Maybe that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
So thank you so much, Glenda, for talking to me and for accepting this award, which is the Richard Harris Award for Contribution to British Film.
Well, thank you. I mean, a double pleasure, not only the award itself, which I now show you.
Oh my goodness.
The B.
Wow.
And you turn it round and there's what it says. And it's all made out of recycled material, which makes it even better.
That is even better, isn't it?
Thank you, BIFA, for this amazing award.